It's episode 675 of the Locked On Rangers podcast. On today's show, we're talking about the Rangers splitting a weird doubleheader in Miami, Jon Gray's return, and Marcus Semien finding his footing. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan since 2010, founder and host for all 4 seasons of this Locked On Rangers podcast. Today is Tuesday, September 13th. Your Rangers are 61-80, officially have a better record than last season, and they've still got plenty of games to go. Thank y'all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers and subscribe on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment any single thing below. Now let's get into the main story first. Jon Gray is back. Thank goodness. He looked fantastic in his first start back off the IL, again on a limited pitch count, just like Cole Reagans was when he made his first start back. He had about the same number of pitches, 45 pitches, 39 of those were for strikes. He was just dominating this Marlins lineup. I mean, his start, it feels like every game against the Marlins, it's a Jon Gray start, and it is a high strikeout game. He went 3 2/3 innings in this one, only had the 1 run, which was unearned, and had 5 strikeouts on 45 pitches. A really, really solid start back for him. The Rangers really needed him in this month of August, where everything kind of fell apart. I mean, a lot of it was due to starting pitching not having it at all, and having to go to guys like Kohei Arihara and guys who just were not ready, and other guys not being able to step up and dominate. Unlike Martin Perez, it was pretty much just the Martin Perez show in that month of August. Rough starts for Dane Dunning, some rough starts for pretty much everyone on this roster, and even a decently two-week injury period, I believe it was, that landed Cole Reagans on the IL. Thankfully, he is back, and the Rangers are at full strength for what their rotation is at this point. The rotation looks like Martin Perez, Jon Gray, Dane Dunning, Glenn Otto, and Cole Reagans. That is a passable starting rotation at the moment for the final month-ish that we have left in this season. The Rangers starting pitching just has not been good enough this year. It has just not lived up to the hype. The lineup has been mostly fine. It's been better than average, I would say, at this point, depending on who is hot and who is not. And the Rangers have some top tier hitters in their lineup. They have a couple of really good starting pitchers, but we've seen Jon Gray have some injury issues, this prolonged injury stint after the left oblique strain. He also had those 2 IL stints in his first 2 starts with the knee injury. A little bit concerning, but he came back and looked healthy. He was fantastic in the month of June, fantastic in the month of July. And in his first August start, he went on the IL, and right when the Rangers needed him the most. This starting staff does not have a lot of depth behind it. There's not a whole lot of guys in AAA who can come right up, but there is one guy who has been sent to AAA. We'll talk a little bit about him, Spencer Howard, who was starting on Sunday, and I believe the Rangers still think of as a starter. I've got a lot of thoughts on that, but I just really loved what I saw from Jon Gray in this one. He looked like the same Jon Gray of old. He threw 27 fastballs, only got 1 swing and miss on those. Not a whole lot of swing and miss on that, but the slider was as good as ever. Threw 15 of those. They swung at 10 of them and missed on half of those swings. Really, really nice stuff from him. Was not able to put that really in play very much. Only 1 ball hit in play of those 10 swings on his slider. Really, really good stuff from him. And everything kind of fell apart right after that. The Rangers bullpen was taxed. They have been taxed a little bit this weekend. They had a stretch of, or in the middle of a stretch, I should say, of 7 games in 6 days. Thankfully, in the next week, they have got 2 off days. The Rangers really desperately need it. The pitching staff needs it. The bullpen needs it. It's just a much needed rest. Thankfully, they at least have got starting pitchers for every day of those games. Granted, one of them wasn't quite up to snuff. Granted, Jung Gray is also still getting back to being healthy. I'm not exactly sure how many pitches he's going to be able to throw in his next start. I would assume maybe somewhere in the range of 60 to 70. I don't think it's going to go, 45 pitches all the way up to like 80 or something. I think that would be a big jump. But I think by the end of the season, he's at least going to be around that 90 to 100 pitch count that you normally see him on. He is not quite able to go as deep into games, especially since he's such a big strikeout pitcher. But on that limited pitch count, he was able to go a little bit deeper than Cole Reagans was. Reagans only went 3 innings on, I believe, 49 pitches, but Reagans was not living in that strike zone, whereas Jon Gray is. I'm hoping that Reagans can find the strike zone, can pitch, have the confidence to pitch in the strike zone, because that's what makes him an effective pitcher. But again, the FIP on Cole Reagans has not been great this year. He has walked a whole lot of batters, has not struck out a whole lot, and has given up quite a few home runs. He didn't give up any hits or home runs in that 3-inning outing, working him back into the starting rotation. I'm hoping he can find whatever it was that it was seeing him dominate in AA this year, dominate in AAA, and earned him that call up to the big leagues, because he is a guy who throws strikes. He's not a big walk guy. He is fairly consistent with his control and command. The strikeouts are not elite, but it's good enough to get some swings and misses. That changeup is fantastic. The cutter is working pretty well, and the curveball is a nice little off pitch. Keep him off balance, throw that every 20 pitches or so. But he has just not been able to maintain or replicate that success that he had in AAA and AA this season. But Jon Gray coming back is just a huge boost for this rotation that really, really needs it. The rest of the pitching in this one was not great for the Rangers. AJ Lexi had a really rough day. He came in to get the final out of that 4th inning. Got that on a strikeout, but other than that, it was not a great day for him. Allowed a single, 3 walks, and then it was pulled with those bases loaded. Brett Martin came in and just was not able to do anything. He was not able to get out of that 5th inning. The Rangers had just taken a 3-1 lead with a pair of home runs. One, a massive shot by Josh Jung. Another was a 2-run shot by Marcus Semien, his 22nd of the season. Was able to score 2. It was just a massive moonshots for both those, I believe 405 and 406 feet. Both of them just absolutely tattooed. Love to see that. And a Bubba Thompson walk the out before, and also his 15th stolen base of the season. The guy is just a menace on the base pass. But the Rangers really let things get away in that 5th inning. We'll get into that a little bit more of the bullpen woes in this one and the Rangers' attempt at a comeback. But first, this episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for all of your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week's games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all of your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores, the fastest and easiest way to check in on all of your favorite sports and events, including Major League Baseball, MMA, boxing, and golf. They've got all kinds of betting stuff. Football season is in full swing, so a crazy week of college football last weekend. If you want to go make some crazy bets, you're feeling like, oh, maybe Bama might get toppled by some random team, or I don't know, maybe Texas is a little bit better than we thought, or I'm going to bet against the Aggies, against whoever the heck they're playing. You can go make those bets. Head to the website today, or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action, because BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Now, this could have been a sweep by the Rangers. The offense did more than enough in this second game. Jon Gray did more than enough in his first start back off the IL. But I do want to talk about a great win, a 3-2 win, a 1-run win that the Rangers had, a hard-fought win in the first game of this doubleheader. They scored all their runs after the 6th inning, 2 runs in that 7th inning off of a little bit of weirdness, just a little bit of weirdness. There was a double, the second double of Josh Jung's major league career, that was absolutely tattooed to straight up center field. JJ Bleday was going back on the warning track, jumps, and you'd think he makes the catch. The ball hits off of his glove, and he runs into the wall, has a difficult time picking it up. He had runners on first and second. Adolis was on second. He was back to second base to tag up, which was the smart play in that moment. Whoever was on first base kind of 50-50'd it, and then was able to go all the way to third base. Josh Jung didn't quite hustle out of the box. He saw JJ Bleday there, thought that he was going to get to that ball, but he did end up making it to second base. I thought on the replay, how in the heck did he get there? Because he was a little slow on the draw, but the Marlins had some trouble getting the ball back to that cutoff man after that misplay by JJ Bleday. Rangers got one run off of that. And I do want to credit Mark Mathias, who has been pretty darn good offensively since he's been called up. I don't still think that he is. I do still think that he is a bench player, not an everyday starter. But the at bats that he's been able to give the Rangers are big, including a plate appearance in this one in that fifth inning to kind of start, or excuse me, that seventh inning to kind of start off or continue that rally. Nathaniel Lowe flew out to start that inning. Adolis Garcia got a first pitch double that he absolutely smacked, his 27th of the season. Mark Mathias fought off some really tough pitches, and there was a what looked like strike three at the very top of the strike zone. There was a little bit of a generous strike zone in this one, but he was able to check his swing. I thought there's no way on that full count he would be able to check his swing, but he did. And Josh Jung was able to hit that double, continue the rally, and move the runner over to third base, and he was still in scoring position. Then we had a Sam Huff productive ground out to the shortstop on Mark Mathias was able to read that ball well and get in and score, tie the game up. Then later on in the eighth inning, the Rangers were able to get one more run. It was from Mark Mathias with a bases loaded walk because, of course, a very walk heavy inning. That inning, a walk from Corey Seager, single by Lowe, a walk by Adolis Garcia. Every single one of those is an absolute gift from above because we don't see that many Adolis Garcia walks. And then a Mark Mathias, once again, full count walk. And also that Adolis Garcia, I know I talked about how every walk is a treasure for him, but especially the full count walks, that is something that he struggled with very badly last year. He's been better about not swinging out of his shoes every time he gets to a full count and knowing, hey, a walk is pretty good sometimes. It's just as good as a single. Literally just as good. But Josh Jung struck out and was not able to do more damage with those bases loaded and 2 outs. It didn't matter. The Rangers bullpen was absolutely nailed in this one, and I got to give a shout out to Glenn Otto. This was a really solid performance from him. Went 6 innings, and him going deep into this game was massive. Like I said, the Rangers have been are in the middle of a very, very long stretch. I'm not sure how much they're going to get out of Cole Reagans in his start. I believe it is tonight that he's starting. But the Rangers bullpen only had to work 3 innings in this one. Jonathan Hernandez worked an inning in 2/3. Matt Moore came on and got the final out of that 8th inning, and Jose Leclerc came in a 1-run game, had a perfect, no drama, 2 strikeout inning to get his 5th save of the season. Very nicely done for him. Of course, we had a Bubba Thompson steal because what game would be complete without a Bubba Thompson steal? The Rangers were only 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position, but that's all they really had to do. They were fairly consistent in this one, got it done when they needed to. Not a whole lot going from the top of the lineup. Still a multi-hit game from Nathaniel Lowe because, of course, it is, because that's just what Nathaniel Lowe does. But the Rangers did exactly what they needed to in this one. But they had a really nice comeback attempt in that 7th inning. The Rangers got 3 runs in this one. They had a Marcus Semien triple, his 5th of the season, a Corey Seager 30th home run of the season, then another walk from Nathaniel Lowe. Adolis Garcia hit his 28th double of the season, but with 2 outs, Jonah Heim struck out. The Rangers were not able to complete that comeback. They were down heading into that inning 3-10, got another 3, had some opportunities in the 8th and 9th, but just were not quite able to do anything with them. But I want to talk about Josh Jung, who has been hitting the ball really well, but there is a little bit of a concern, and it was one of the only concerns that I had about him in his rehab outings. He was starting to strike out a little bit too much. He was trying to do a little bit too much. He has been making some hard contact. He does have 4 extra base hits in his first 5 games, which ties him for the Rangers franchise record. The only people to do that are Ruben Mateo and Ruben Sierra, which that's not bad company to be in for your rookie season. Now, after that, I don't know if that's always the best company in terms of Ruben Mateo, but it is a nice little list to be on. He has been hitting the ball well, but he's got a pretty bad strikeout rate at this point. He has got 20 major league plate appearances, 20 at bats because he has not walked. He has not been hit by pitch, but he has struck out 11 times in those 20 at bats. That is an over 50% strikeout rate. That is not the Josh Jung that I have known, that I have watched, that he has been as a hitter. I do still think he is pushing just a little bit. He talked about the week of September when he had that 0 for stretch when he was a little bit disappointed not to be called up. He started trying to do too much instead of just being Josh Jung and taking those walks, being very patient, having those professional at bats that he's had since he was a teenager at Texas Tech. He was just swinging a little bit too much, and I like him swing. I like him being aggressive, but his greatest benefit is being an overall well-rounded offensive player, being able to work those walks, get on base at a high clip, and therefore get better pitches to hit. He has been just a little aggressive, but I do think he's going to come out of it. I don't think this is going to be a trend. He did have the golden sombrero on Sunday, but he is still a very young player. He has literally just gotten called up. I do think that strikeout rate's going to come down, I should say, and hopefully he can get quite a few walks against this Oakland team in this 2-game series and later on in the year. Coming up, we're going to look at Marcus Semien, his great day, and what he's been able to do as of late, and why patience has definitely been paying off if you're a big Marcus Semien fan. But first, this word from our sponsors. Now, Marcus Semien had about the worst start to the season that you could ask for. He just did not hit any home runs until basically the end of the month of May, but since then he has been mostly on a tear. Has had some ups and downs in terms of the months, but right now he is leading the team in Baseball Reference WAR at 4.7 WAR. He's tied with Martin Perez. Corey Seager is a whole 0.9 WAR behind him. Corey Seager has been in a bit of an offensive funk. That home run hopefully can kick off a new hot streak for him to end the season, pull up his overall numbers, make him look just a little bit better. But since Tony Beasley taken over, Corey Seager has not hit at nearly the same rate that he did before. But we're talking about Marcus Semien right now, and he is a guy who is a big routine guy. So it really makes sense that him being in a new state, a new stadium, a new contract, everything is a lot bit new, I should say, for Marcus Semien when he first got here. And so those early season struggles, they make a lot of sense. Not having those home runs early on, he had not found routine. He was not familiar with the environment. He is a guy who likes to play every single day. He's played all but one game so far this season. That game off, I think, kind of helped him reset everything, and he looked a whole lot better after that. Still did take him a while to get his first home run after, I believe it was 2 or 3 weeks after that one game sitting out against Boston that he hit his first home run, that grand slam in Oakland. But since then, he's always in his career been a better hitter in the second half than he has in the first. That's why he has so few all-star appearances, despite him having so many great seasons. He had a season where he finished top 3 in MVP voting and was not an all-star. That's just kind of the Marcus Semien experience. And he did have a little bit of a rough month of August, but right now he is on a tear in September in 12 games. He's already got a pair of home runs, hitting 302, on base 339, an OPS of 867. He had an 840 OPS in the month of July and an 850 OPS in the month of June. 7 homers then, 6 homers in July. Even in August, when he was kind of falling down a little bit, the batting average was down 40 points from where it was in the month of July, but he still hit 6 home runs in that month. And right now he's got 2 home runs through 12 games in September. He has just been hitting dingers at a very high clip, higher than pretty much anyone else on this team since that first home run, outside of Corey Seager, who got his 30th. He is the first shortstop for the Rangers to hit 30 home runs since old A-Rod, and he is the only other one to hit 30 home runs as a primary shortstop. We did see a 20 homer season from Elvis Andrus, who, by the way, is on an absolute tear right now with the Chicago White Sox. Absolutely love that for him. He is crushing it there. Love seeing him thrive. But again, the patience with Marcus Semien has paid off. I think next year he might still have a slow start, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as bad as what he did this year. I don't necessarily think he's going to hit 46 home runs for the season, but I wouldn't necessarily count out breaking that 40 homer plateau. He still has some pretty pretty bad splits in terms of home versus away. He's got a 588 OPS at home in 68 games and an 849 OPS on the road. 14 homers on the road and 8 at home. He's also got 4 of his 5 triples on the road, which he had another one of in this second game against Miami. He had a 3-hit day. He had a massive homer. He was just a double away from hitting for the cycle. He was actually the only Ranger to have multiple hits in this one. Had a multi-walk game from Nathaniel Lowe, but he was the only Ranger to reach base multiple times in this one. The Rangers just were not able to get it going, and this was a really rough outing for Brett Martin. He was not able to slam the door shut. Got an 8-run inning from the worst offense in baseball. That is just a really rough way to lose this one. Take out that 8-run inning, or hey, you cut it in half. You'd say they only score 4 runs. That is a 6-6 game in the ninth inning, and maybe this one is going to extras, or maybe they walk it off in the bottom of the ninth inning, but it is giving the Rangers a much better chance. We've seen offensively how the Rangers have been able to fight back in some of these games where the pitching staff just completely lets them down. We saw it on Saturday. The Rangers were down 11-3 after Kohei Arihara was pulled from the game. They were able to rally and make it a little bit closer. In this one, they were able to rally and make it a little bit closer, but I don't know if necessarily would have been able to score those runs. Maybe your mindset is different. Maybe they're pitching a little bit differently to them, and they aren't able to pile on that many runs. But it feels like this team is right around the corner, right about to turn the corner. They still need a lot of help this offseason, but you can kind of see the signs. They already have a better record than last year. Obviously, they're a better team than last year. Probably should have a significantly better record than last year, but with all the pitching injuries and the starting pitching not working out, like Taylor Hearn and Spencer Howard both not working out as starters, and I think they're still going to try and get Spencer Howard as a starter. It kind of makes sense where they are. The offense has jumped from absolutely horrific to pretty decent, and that is a huge jump to make. The starting pitching has gone from pretty horrible to a couple of guys look pretty good. Dane Dunning's all right. Jon Gray's pretty good when he's healthy. Martin Perez is really good when he's healthy, and that is a huge development, and they absolutely need to keep him around. But I want to talk about Spencer Howard, because when he went on the IL after his last outing, August 7th against the White Sox, where he went 3 and a third innings, allowed 6 runs, 5 of those were earned, and only struck out 3. I felt like that was time. It was time to give up on Spencer Howard, the starting pitcher. But the Rangers, it doesn't seem like they're giving up on Spencer Howard, the starting pitcher, because in his Sunday outing, he started the game. He went 4 innings, allowed 5 hits, 1 run, which was earned, did not walk anybody, and only struck out 4. I know I said only 4 in 4 innings. That is a 9 Ks per 9. But for this guy, we've seen him strike out guys at the AAA level and it not quite turn into the same level of success at the big leagues. He has been a guy who has relied pretty much on 4-seamer and cutter, and those pitches have been squared up. They have been recognizable out of the hand, and he has not used his full arsenal, which is what made him a starting pitching prospect. He has that curveball, he's got that changeup, he's got a little bit more of a slider and a sinker that he has been using more often. And we saw a little bit of success when he came back up to the big leagues. We saw some starts that were pretty decent. He had a couple of 5-inning outings at the big league level. 3 of them, actually. One against Oakland, one against Seattle, and one against LA. That LA one, he shut out the Angels for those 5 innings, didn't walk anybody, allowed just 3 hits, and struck out 5. And thought, okay, this guy is turning a quarter. Then the very next outing, he gets lit up by Baltimore. 4 innings, 6 runs, all of them were earned, a hit by pitch, 2 walks, and a homer, only 3 strikeouts, and then gets lit up again by the White Sox in the next outing. You think, okay, well, was that just fool's gold? Was that just the Angels being in a terrible slump and everything going really, really poorly for them? Well, Mike Trout wasn't there, but Shohei Ohtani still was, and Shohei Ohtani was still doing Shohei things, wasn't able to get a homer off of him, was not able to get a walk off of him, and I believe he did strike him out at least once. Maybe 2 of his 5 strikeouts were against Shohei. I believe at least one of them was, but I just don't know that I believe in this guy as a starting pitcher anymore. The Rangers do need it. They do need some help. They're going to have to replace some of these guys. I wish Cole Reagan's had to prove a whole lot in these final 2, 3, maybe 4 starts that he's got by the end of the season. If he wants to stick in this Rangers rotation, I think that he is going to really be fighting for his life as a starting pitcher at the big league level. If he can't throw strikes, he can't stay in the strike zone and keep the ball in the ballpark and, not put a lot of guys on for free. He's going to have a hard time hanging down, nailing down, whatever kind of down a spot in the Rangers starting rotation because it needs improvement. I like the top 3 they have right now. I think they're all capable major league starters. They are going to need some depth, so maybe Reagans won't be fighting as hard, but still, it is hard to maintain any kind of success when your starting pitchers cannot stay in the strike zone. That is what has plagued Glenn Otto when he has been good, when he's been at his best. He has been able to throw strikes, work quickly through innings, and use that hammer breaking ball to get some swings and misses. He was able to do that in the first game of this doubleheader, but I just don't know that I believe in him as a starting pitcher anymore. Him being, of course, Spencer Howard. I think he's going to be a nasty reliever, though. Multi-inning outing guy. If he can just... I haven't seen what he was actually doing on Sunday. I haven't talked to anybody who has watched him. But if he can just get a little bit more committed to varying his pitches, not just living on 1 or 2 pitches. That was something that plagued Zach Kent early on in the season. He has a fantastic slider, probably one of the best in the system. I think him and Jack Leiter and, well, now Kumar Rocker probably has the best slider in the system. But Zach Kent's is up there, and that's his primary pitch. He was living a little bit too much on that and not trusting his other stuff. Then he started using his fastball, his changeup, and his curveball a little bit more often. And when you're a starting pitcher, you cannot rely on 2 pitches unless they're just the 2 best pitches in baseball. If you're Jacob deGrom and you've got a 100-mile-an-hour fastball with some crazy run on it and a slider that's 95 miles an hour with some crazy break on it as well, then yeah, you can be a starting pitcher with 2 pitches. Or if you're Clayton Kershaw and you've got just an insanely good fastball and an insanely good curveball, even him, he added the slider just out of nowhere and started using a cutter and a changeup as well, and made him a lot more effective. But there's just not a lot of pitchers that can get away with being a 2-pitch pitcher. Spencer Howard was trying to do that, and granted, those 2 pitches are pretty good. His fastball's pretty good, cutters pretty good, but you just need some more variance because once these guys see you 2 times, the 3rd time, they're going to just absolutely light you up because big league hitters are too good to see the same thing 3 times over and not take advantage of it, no matter how good your stuff is. But if the Rangers can believe in him as a starting pitcher, if he does show that progress, I was really high on him in spring training. The spring training outings looked fantastic. He looked like a completely different pitcher than what we saw at the back end of last year and what we ended up seeing in the regular season for the most part this year. It's just there's a lot of things that he has to improve on. A big way to go, and I'm not sure that he can do all of that and hold down a starting spot. I think he might have 1 more year of options left next year because he's been injured so much this year and was injured a decent amount last year. But the Rangers are going to have to make a decision really quickly on him. It seems they're continued in their confidence that he can be a starting pitcher if he can. His ceiling, again, is probably higher than Cole Reagan's. It's definitely higher than Glenn Otto. It's probably higher than Dane Dunning's even. But there is a big gap from his floor to his ceiling. I think moving him to the bullpen is the fastest way to make him make a big impact on this team. And him as a nasty multi-inning reliever is not exactly what you wanted for a year and a half of your all-star pitcher and decent relief pitcher and another prospect that you had to throw in there just to get Spencer Howard. And that trade is still probably going to look pretty crappy at the end of it. But you got to recoup some value from it and try not to lose this trade in as badly as they're losing it right now. But that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Range. I'll be back tomorrow to talk about this first game against Oakland, what we see from Cole Reagans. But for your second listen, go check out the Locked On MLB podcast with Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call him Sully. He's bringing you his unique perspective on the major leagues, what's happening right now, the thick of the playoff races, and a good look at Major League Baseball's past as well. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. That'll do it for today's show. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.